The $60 luxury foundation is now $19 in secret sales channels, signaling that prestige beauty sales have plummeted by an unprecedented 15% across major global markets in the last quarter alone. Right now, 9 iconic, multi-billion-dollar brands are quietly slashing prices and liquidating inventory just to survive. We're breaking down the insider data that exposes which industry giants are next to collapse and why their overpriced formulas failed the ultimate consumer test. The billion-dollar beauty bust. Why high-end shelves are collecting dust. This is not a slight seasonal shift. This is the billion-dollar beauty bust, and the market data is horrifying. For the first time in over a decade, the premium beauty segment is experiencing a catastrophic failure of demand. This downturn is particularly shocking because the beauty market was long considered recession-proof, sustained by the lipstick effect, the idea that consumers would always splurge on small luxuries. That historical resilience is now failing, showing the depth of consumer distrust. Prestige makeup sales, once the engine of department store beauty, have recently stalled, with luxury anti-aging serum sales in some major European markets reporting a decline in value of up to 2% in the first quarter, compared to a robust 8% growth just 1 year prior. This unprecedented drop is forcing iconic names like Estée Lauder and Shiseido to report significant decreases in sales in key global regions, particularly as the powerful Chinese market slows. The financial implications are staggering. Corporate offices are initiating hiring freezes and enacting mandatory spending cuts that haven't been seen since the last major recession. This signals far more than a routine market correction. It is a fundamental collapse of the aspirational model. The inventory surplus has grown so large that for every 2 items sold, a third item sits aging in a warehouse, creating immense financial pressure on quarterly earnings. The crisis is simple. Brands that were never discounted are now running aggressive, hidden sales and private friends and family events just to clear inventory that would otherwise take 18 months to sell through. These aren't minor markdowns. We are talking about wholesale liquidation tactics, often funneled through third-party gray market distributors to avoid tainting their carefully cultivated luxury image. The core consumer is already aware, however, seeing their coveted $300 moisturizer suddenly available online for less than half the retail price. This erosion of price integrity is irreversible, damaging brand equity that took decades to build. The market is witnessing the painful disintegration of prestige pricing power. The core thesis is a crisis of value. A La Mer cream that costs over $300 is perceived as no longer delivering a proportional benefit over a $50 clinical alternative. Data shows that 63% of consumers now believe premium products do not perform better than their mass-market counterparts. This disillusionment is the most expensive problem facing the industry. The aspirational middle-class consumer, who once defined the sector's growth, is gone, having permanently traded down in search of true value. They realize they were paying for the experience of luxury, not for superior ingredients. They have become smart spenders, combining a few expensive hero products with a bulk of affordable, high-performing basics. We are witnessing a systemic failure built on overpricing and under-delivering, training consumers to wait for the deep, value-eroding markdowns. This is only the beginning. Next, we expose the Great Deception, how years of price hikes finally gave way to the inevitable hype hangover. The Great Deception, how pricing and quality created the beauty hype hangover. This is the Great Deception, the aggressive, unjustified price hikes that finally triggered the beauty hype hangover. Over the last 3 years, the price of a core prestige serum from a leading brand, like Dior's Capture Total line or Guerlain's Abel Royale, increased by an average of 20%. far exceeding the general rate of inflation. The industry attempted to justify this through vague pronouncements about supply chain pressures. Yet global sales data tells a different story. These increases were primarily profit margin grabs, capitalizing on post-pandemic consumer euphoria. This cynical strategy alienated the customer, who was already financially stretched. Department store prestige beauty traffic declined by a painful 1.6% on average across major regions in the last year alone, confirming that the post-pandemic sales boom has decisively ended. Retailers report that consumers are browsing but not buying, often pulling out their phones to check ingredient lists and compare prices on the spot. This hyper-informed shopping behavior means pricing errors are immediately visible and shareable. Consumers are no longer willing to pay a $250 luxury tax for an ingredient list that a mass market brand is delivering for $40. This realization is the greatest threat to established luxury houses, as the perceived gap in efficacy has closed completely. The sheer volume of new, highly effective, and transparently priced alternatives has removed the financial incentive for blind loyalty. This shift is most pronounced among Millennials and Generation Z, with nearly 50% of these cohorts admitting to intentionally purchasing product dupes, or high-quality affordable alternatives. They communicate their financial savvy openly on social media, turning dupe hunting into a badge of conscious consumption. This generation values their budget more than brand heritage, and their purchasing decisions are framed by the need for authenticity and proven performance. They view the luxury price tag not as a status symbol, but as an insult. This is a movement of conscious spending, where savvy consumers prioritize genuine performance over a prestigious logo. When they see a $30 concealer perform identically to an $80 counterpart on social media, the value proposition of the high-end product completely collapses. The industry's insistence on maximizing profit through price manipulation instead of true innovation has finally created a crisis of confidence. They tried to extract too much value for too little substance, and the market punished them. The fallout has been swift and brutal, revealing how little the luxury houses innovated while they were distracted by profits. The industry must now reckon with the fact that inflated prices are actively driving their customers away, fueling the success of their rivals. Now, the reckoning begins, as total ingredient transparency reveals the cheap formulas hiding behind the expensive packaging. The reckoning, how skincare transparency ended the makeup monopoly. This is the reckoning. Insider data reveals that while the raw material cost for key active ingredients like niacinamide and hyaluronic acid has risen by only 3% in the past year, many luxury brands have deliberately held their formula quality stagnant or even cheapened their bases to boost margins. They substituted expensive, high-quality botanical extracts with cheaper synthetic alternatives, believing the customer wouldn't notice, relying on the old marketing myth that packaging equals power. This is how skincare transparency, driven by consumer literacy, has successfully ended the makeup monopoly. The consumer behavior shift is total. We have moved from buying logo makeup to demanding ingredient-first skincare. People no longer ask, which luxury house is this from? They ask, what percentage of vitamin C is in this serum? Is the delivery system stable? Data confirms that search volume for ingredient terms like peptide and ceramide on retailer websites is up 40% year over year, while searches for specific prestige brand names are down by an average of 5%. The consumer now has the power of information and is using it to call out outdated science and lazy formulation. They demand proof of efficacy, not just pretty promises. Online creators, leveraging platforms like TikTok and YouTube, are the ultimate exposers. They apply their scientific knowledge to the ingredient lists of $1,000 creams and reveal that the actual efficacious components are often minuscule or cheapened by filler. This democratization of information has been catastrophic for brands that built their empires on secrecy. This transparency has fueled the boom of ingredient-forward competitors like The Ordinary and CeraVe, which offer clinical-grade formulations at 20% of the prestige price, successfully stealing substantial market share. They built trust by leading with data, something the legacy brands dismissed until it was too late. The giants, built on mystique and marketing, were simply not prepared for a consumer who now reads the fine print. Their investment went into glossy campaigns and celebrity faces, not into maintaining cutting-edge formulas, leaving them vulnerable to any upstart brand with a superior lab budget. They are now playing catch-up in a race they have already lost. This shift proves that no amount of marketing can overcome a poor ingredient list in the modern age, forever changing the criteria for luxury legitimacy. Next, we dive into the countdown, starting with two iconic fragrance houses caught in a cheap perfume trap. Brand downfall, number 9 and number 8. The iconic fragrance houses, caught in a cheap perfume trap. We start the countdown at numbers 9 and 8. The iconic fragrance houses caught in a cheap perfume trap. The biggest sign of panic? One classic brand, historically untouchable, offloaded an astonishing 60% of its holiday inventory at a 50% loss through gray market distributors just to hit quarterly targets and artificially boost their end-of-year figures. This fire sale severely damaged their long-term equity for short-term financial survival, creating a dangerous dependency on discounting. The brands are House of Jo Malone and the classic Parisian luxury line, Crystalline Scents. These heritage houses believed their history was enough to sustain a $200 price tag, trusting that their names alone commanded respect. They were wrong. Their fatal flaw was an over-reliance on detached celebrity endorsements that felt tired and out of place in a modern market, failing to connect with younger consumers. Crucially, their loss of exclusivity due to mass placement in every department store and airport duty-free eroded their aspirational appeal. They went from being a coveted, rare find to ubiquitous clutter, sacrificing exclusivity for volume. Consumer data reveals the ultimate betrayal: longevity. Users frequently report that the scent profile of their $75 eau de toilette vanishes in under 3 hours, a catastrophic failure compared to modern, highly concentrated parfum formulations from cheaper, digital native competitors. This is directly tied to the brands cutting corners on crucial fixatives and high-quality base notes, prioritizing volatile, cheaper top notes for an instant rush that doesn't last. The cost per wear became unjustifiable when a $25 alternative provided superior performance, making the luxury price feel completely nonsensical. While the global fragrance market is still growing at a modest 3%, these two heritage brands have seen their market share in the prestige sector contract by a combined 7% in the last fiscal year. They mistakenly believed that packaging and brand storytelling could mask a cheapened formulation, but the consumers' noses proved more discerning than their marketing teams anticipated. The consumer, now demanding performance, has rejected this deception en masse, choosing quality of composition over brand legacy. They sold out their exclusivity, and now the consumer is doing the same to them. Next, we examine the next two downfalls, trapped by cheap packaging and false luxury. Brand downfall, number 7 and number 6. The packaging trap and the crisis of false luxury. The collapse continues with brands 7 and 6, victims of the packaging trap and the crisis of false luxury. The critical moment of betrayal arrived when a major brand quietly switched packaging suppliers to a cheaper overseas alternative. This cost-cutting measure immediately led to a 400% increase in consumer complaints about broken compacts, shattered mirrors, and faulty pump dispensers on their flagship $100 foundation. The physical product itself became a symbol of the brand's declining standards, confirming consumer suspicions that quality was being sacrificed for profit. The brands are the high-end makeup line, Luminous Glow, and the luxury skincare house, Artisan Beauty. These houses prioritized spectacle over substance, overspending dramatically on marketing hype, lavish influencer trips, and glossy magazine spreads, while consistently underinvesting in core research and development. Their $200 age-defying serums saw no significant formula updates in over 5 years, running on old, expired patents, while competitors launched revolutionary delivery systems. The backlash has been specific and brutal. Their high-end makeup lines are seeing sales volume reductions of 11% year-on-year, driven by online reviews that detail physical product failures and inferior wear time compared to budget options. The marketing budget was routinely 10 times larger than the research and development budget, a clear signal that the corporate focus was on selling an image, not a product. They created an illusion of exclusivity through glossy advertising, but the product experience failed spectacularly at the consumer level. Consumers realized the heavy, luxurious glass and metallic finishes were merely a costly disguise for cheap products inside. They paid for the experience of luxury, not the performance. This fundamental dishonesty severed the emotional bond with the brand. The consumer is now asking, why should I pay $85 for a powder in a case that breaks after 2 weeks? The lack of quality in the physical product served as undeniable, tangible evidence that the brand had ceased to care about the customer experience. The perceived value collapsed entirely because the lie was made tangible. This segment asks a crucial question. What luxury product did you stop buying, and why? Share your answer in the comments. Next, we expose the former trend leader that lost everything by betting too big on millennials. Brand downfall number 5. The billion-dollar brand that bet on millennials and lost everything. At number 5, we find the former trend leader that placed its entire bet on millennials and lost everything. The alarm bells are sounding loudly after a leaked internal memo revealed Brand 5 is planning a devastating 30% reduction in its physical store footprint, specifically targeting high-rent, low-traffic mall locations across the United States. This is a desperate attempt to cut losses caused by high overhead and negligible foot traffic, a direct result of betting too heavily on brick and mortar when the market went digital and direct-to-consumer. The brand is Trendsetter Cosmetics. They committed the cardinal sin of oversaturation, the dreaded Michael Kors effect. They were once the pinnacle of cool, with their distinctive $40 liquid lipstick selling out globally, but they released too many products too fast, diluting their line and confusing the core consumer. Their aggressive launch schedule choked their retail partners and resulted in mass inventory pileups that had to be liquidated at deep discounts. Sales data confirms their fatal misstep. Their loyalty program participation has dropped by 19% as customers felt bombarded, not rewarded, perceiving the brand as cheapening itself. Their failed attempts at reinvention only accelerated the collapse. They launched confusing sublines and signed ambassadors that contradicted their original ethos, alienating the core audience they needed most. They tried to pivot to every fleeting trend, undermining the consistency their loyal buyers depended on. While trying to chase the clean beauty trend, their own products were called out for outdated preservative systems, exposing their hypocrisy and demonstrating their lack of integrity regarding modernity. Trendsetter Cosmetics is proof that when a brand tries to be ubiquitous, it ceases to be special. Its decline is a slow, self-inflicted wound, marked by the steady decay of brand identity and consumer trust. Their high overhead and lack of digital agility turned them into a liability, unable to compete with smaller, faster rivals. Their failure paves the way for celebrity-backed competitors whose scandals are now fueling their own downfall. They learned too late that trendiness is transient, but value is eternal. Brand downfall number 4 and number 3. When celebrity ownership isn't enough, the scandals and lawsuits. We are now at brands 4 and 3, the celebrity-backed lines that prove star power is simply not enough. One globally recognized celebrity-backed brand is currently facing a class action lawsuit over false advertising and misleading ingredient claims regarding its most popular foundation, highlighting a severe authenticity crisis fueled by consumer legal action. The public appetite for blind celebrity worship has vanished. Now, consumers demand accountability. The brands are the A-List Founders line, A-List Glow, and the influencer-driven venture, Influence Skincare. Their business model was simple: leverage a massive founder platform to drive immediate hype and sky-high opening week sales. However, the lawsuits and surrounding scandals are exposing the fundamental problem. Once the founders' attention shifted to other projects, product quality immediately suffered, often managed by inexperienced internal teams more concerned with promotion than formulation integrity. These brands are failing the authenticity test. Consumers are no longer impressed by a celebrity endorsement. They are inspecting the formulation and performance, holding these founders to an impossible standard of genuine commitment. The crisis is that the consumer realized they were paying a huge premium for a logo and an idea, not for superior performance or consistent quality control. For A-List Glow, consumer reviews regarding their $90 serum showed a 35% drop in average rating over the last 2 years, correlating directly with the founders' decreased public involvement and product quality neglect. The moment the hype wore off and the quality was shown to be mediocre, the purchase became regrettable, leading to massive rates of returns. Sales data for celebrity-backed beauty overall show a recent contraction of 4%, indicating that the initial rush has completely peaked. When the focus is on fame, the product suffers, the consumer walks away, and the resulting legal turmoil becomes yet another major drag on the balance sheet. They discovered that fame sells once, but quality sells forever, leaving only 2 giants left, brands considered untouchable until now. Brand downfall. Number 2 and number 1, the quiet demise of 2 industry giants, the shock reveal. We come to the quiet demise of 2 industry giants. The shock reveal is brand number 1, long considered financially untouchable, which recently had its stock downgraded to sell after analysts observed inventory that would take a staggering 18 months to clear at current sales velocity. This is the definition of a stock being utterly buried under an unsold product, requiring aggressive and brand-damaging liquidation tactics. The 2 giants are the classic heritage powerhouse, the Royal House, and the clinical luxury leader, Perfection Labs. Their corporate desperation is now painfully evident. They are engaging in severe, deep discounting, not just in gray markets, but in highly restricted, private flash sales to their loyalty members. These sales frequently offer discounts of up to 40% off flagship makeup palettes and skincare bundles, fundamentally eroding the perception of their core value. This pervasive discounting poisons the market for their full-price items and signals profound financial distress. Their inability to adapt to the digital age is their undoing. Their reliance on outdated commission-based countermodels and high-cost physical retail locations meant they were simply too big and too slow to pivot to effective direct-to-consumer e-commerce. While digital native brands saw double-digit growth, the Royal House saw e-commerce increase by only 2%, in the last reporting period, ceding the future to their online rivals. The brutal truth is that their market share is declining at nearly double the industry average. They suffer from the high cost of their bloated organizational structure and immense footprint, suffocating them while smaller, agile brands thrive. Their leadership failed to innovate, believing their size made them impervious to change. These two companies are not just slowing down, they are sinking under their own weight, unable to jettison their costly legacy infrastructure and respond to the urgent consumer demand for value. This complete list must now be shared. The luxury divide. Who is still shopping and why the middle class is out? We have reached the luxury divide, the complete abandonment of the sector by the middle class. The shocking reality is that industry reports suggest only the top 5% of global wealth is currently sustaining the sales volume of the 9 brands we have analyzed. The aspirational consumer base, the person who saved for a $250 luxury item, has effectively abandoned the sector entirely, seeking superior value elsewhere and proving the lipstick effect is officially over. Market data confirms this socio-economic realignment. Sales of prestige products priced over $150 have seen a simultaneous decline of 10% in traditional department stores, coupled with a 15% increase in purchases by the top income brackets at exclusive high-end boutiques. This highlights a clear bifurcation. The mass affluent buyer has defected to affordable quality, leaving the luxury brands with only their ultra-wealthy core. They are catering to a shrinking pool of true luxury buyers who are insulated from economic pressures, dramatically reducing their total viable market. As a result, we are seeing panicked restructuring. Brands like Sisley Paris and Chantecaille are being forced to close dozens of costly retail counters in suburban malls and refocus only on high-end flagships in major metropolitan areas like New York and Paris. This is not expansion. This is a desperation tactic to cut losses and artificially re-engineer a sense of exclusivity by shrinking their physical footprint. By removing their products from accessible mall locations, they hope to recapture the mystique they lost through oversaturation. But the damage is done. They are attempting to survive by becoming smaller and rarer, hoping the few remaining buyers will perceive this contraction as a desired return to true luxury. However, this strategy is only delaying the inevitable. The structural damage is already too severe, and the trust is broken. The brands that fail to change their fundamental value proposition are facing extinction, proving that the luxury bubble was unsustainable once consumers gained pricing and ingredient transparency. This is simply the prelude to the final stage, the beauty industry's inevitable apocalypse. The final warning: who survives the beauty apocalypse? This is the final warning. Out of the 9 brands we have exposed, only 2 or 3 will exist in their current form 5 years from now. The rest will be absorbed by larger conglomerates, sold off for intellectual property, or quietly vanish from the retail floor, a footnote in the history of consumer collapse. The core reason for this collapse is tragically simple. They were overpriced, under-delivering, and completely out of touch with the new, informed consumer. The market waited years for them to innovate. They responded with price hikes and celebrity endorsements, signing their own fate. The brands that will survive are those built on verifiable, patented science. Brands like SkinCeuticals or Augustinus Bader, whose high price points are justified by decades of clinical research and tangible, unique technology. They invested heavily in research and development, not just runway sponsorships, giving them a formulaic barrier to entry that dupes cannot easily cross. They will thrive because they offer genuine, defensible value, making their price tag a justified investment in performance. Conversely, the companies built solely on marketing mystique, fleeting trends, and celebrity endorsements are already on the auction block. Their failure proves that the consumer will no longer tolerate paying for prestige when a superior, affordable formula exists. The balance of power has shifted permanently from the brand owner to the consumer, armed with ingredient lists and price comparison tools. This market reset is the final, brutal truth the luxury world needed to hear. It's an unavoidable correction for years of overinflated prices and underdeveloped products. Consumer power is the ultimate force, and the era of brand supremacy is unequivocally over. The only way to survive the coming beauty apocalypse is through radical transparency, fair pricing, and, most importantly, superior science that actually justifies the cost. Those who refuse to adapt will perish. The collapse of these 9 titans proves that the era of paying for a logo is over, and consumer power has officially reset the beauty market. If you want to stay ahead of the next major industry failure, hit the subscribe button now for more investigative deep dives. Tell us in the comments, which luxury brand have you abandoned forever?